India becomes the third country with the highest number of COVID-19 cases as the tally reaches 7 lakh. But recoveries also cross 4.2 lakh, keeping the recovery rate at above 60%. The death toll inches closer to 20,000. Indian and Chinese troops begin disengagement along the line of actual control, including the Galwan Valley. Activity picks up after National Security Advisor Ajit Doval and the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi agree to expedite the process. A buffer zone has been created and sources say both sides are likely to move back up to 3 kilometers. Market gains for the fourth straight day to end at a 4-month high on positive global cues. The Sensex and the Nifty gain around 1.5% each. Reliance Industries emerges as the biggest contributor to the Nifty as the stock soars to a fresh lifetime high. Maharashtra government allows hotels and lodges to reopen at 33% capacity from Wednesday. But Aurangabad and Kerala's capital Thiruvananthapuram go into a strict lockdown after a spike in cases. The Finance Ministry's macroeconomic report for June acknowledges that the IMF has downgraded India's growth estimates for 2020 to negative 4.5%, but does not explicitly endorse the view. Says that while there are uncertainties like delays to business plans and the risk of a second wave of infections, high-frequency indicators indicate the emergence of green shoots. The government's new draft e-commerce policy proposes some tough rules around data. Mentions setting up of a regulator for the sector to ensure fair competition and protection of national security. Highlights challenges like consumer protection, revenue-based erosion and anti-competitive behavior. The Haryana cabinet clears a draft ordinance to reserve 75% new private sector jobs for locals. Is likely to take a final call on the law at a next meeting. A manhunt is underway across UP for Vikas Dubey, the main accused behind the killings of 8 police personnel in Kanpur last week. 3 cops suspended after his accomplice tells investigative agencies that the gangster received a tip-off from a mole in the local police station. Also on the show, after Delhi, Mumbai begins rapid antigen tests to combat COVID-19 in hotspots. We spend a day with local authorities at a quarantine center. A special report coming up. Good evening. Thanks for joining us on India Business Hour. I'm Shireen Bhan. Here's the latest on coronavirus. India has overtaken Russia, becoming the third worst hit country in the world. Total COVID cases now near 7 lakh, with over 19,600 deaths so far. Over 24,000 new cases were reported in the last 24 hours. This is the second biggest rise in a single day. Over 4 lakh people have recovered so far, with more than 15,000 recovering in the last 24 hours. So the recovery rate continues to look strong and is now closer to 61%. Now remember, Mumbai was the worst affected city just a few days ago, but now it has the 4th highest number of active cases in the country, so it has improved significantly. Neighbouring Thane has jumped to the top spot with 28,500 active cases. Delhi is second with 25,000 active cases, followed by Chennai. Hyderabad is the 5th worst affected city with 18,500 active cases. But staying with COVID, as Delhi's coronavirus count nears 1 lakh, the recovery rate is touching 72%. This is amongst the highest in the country. Delhi is also getting its first COVID-dedicated hospital with 1,000 beds, which was built in less than 2 weeks by the DRDO. Deputy Chief Minister Manish Sisodia says new cases are stabilizing. There is no need to panic and that bed capacity currently is underutilized.
दिल्ली में कह सकते हैं कि कोरोना का जो स्प्रेड है वो थोड़ा स्टेबलाइज हुआ है। जून के पहले हफ्ते में और दूसरे हफ्ते तक स्पीड बहुत हाई थी, लेकिन इस वक्त करीब 2 से 2,500 केसेस रोजाना आ रहे हैं।
Well, that is Delhi's Deputy Chief Minister Manish Sisodia on the fight with COVID. Now, Maharashtra's government has allowed partial reopening of hotels and lodges outside of containment zones from Wednesday. They can operate at a 33% capacity with social distancing norms, use of face masks and the Arogya Setu app. The app, of course, is mandatory. But even as hotels start to reopen in Maharashtra, Aurangabad is going into a lockdown for 9 days. Bajaj Auto has a plant in the district. This is, of course, an industrial hub. Bajaj Auto has reported 250 cases and 5 deaths so far. Rajiv Bajaj says that this is going to be part of the process of unlocking, but more importantly, it is what is happening outside of the premises of factories that is a cause of concern, with the lack of social distancing, etc., that is impacting those inside factories.
We have about 250 active cases, and we have 5 deaths so far. To the best of my knowledge, I have not updated as of this morning. There is no evidence that any of these people were infected on the Bajaj premises. We live in a state which is apparently the worst affected state in India, and Aurangabad, along with Mumbai and Pune, is also recording new highs. There is zero social distancing. 60% of the people, as per the reports I have from the ground, are not wearing masks.
Well, that is Rajiv Bajaj there on Aurangabad. Remember, Aurangabad has gone into lockdown for the next 9 days. Now, Kerala has imposed a triple lockdown in the capital city of Trivandrum for 1 week following a spike in COVID cases. All government offices will remain closed, barring the police department. Public transport services will remain shut. Only essential goods stores and medicine stores will remain open. And Karnataka has modified its quarantine norms for people coming in from Maharashtra. Instead of 7 days of mandatory institutional quarantine, they will now be placed under 14 days of home quarantine. The Archaeological Survey of India has reopened more than 2,000 monuments. However, in Agra, Taj Mahal and other monuments remain shut as they fall in the buffer zone outside a containment zone. The ASI had shut down more than 3,000 monuments on March 17th, even before the nationwide lockdown began. 239 scientists from 32 countries have written an open letter to the World Health Organization claiming that the coronavirus is airborne. According to the New York Times, the scientists have outlined the evidence showing that the virus can hang in the air and have called on the agency to revise its recommendations. There has been no word yet from the WHO. While moving away from COVID now, in what could be interpreted as the first signs of disengagement at the Galwan Valley since the violent face-off last month, we learned from sources that Indian and Chinese troops have started withdrawing from the standoff site. This comes days after the Corps Commander level talks zeroed in on a step-by-step de-escalation and less than 24 hours after National Security Advisor Ajit Doval held talks with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Li. We learned that the troops on both sides are likely to step back by up to 3 kilometers and that a buffer zone would be created between them. Parikshit Tutra has been tracking that, joins us now with the details. Parikshit, so first signs of active disengagement, but what reports are coming in from the ground?
Well, we have been hearing of intensive negotiations at the level of the Army and the MEA over the last couple of days. This culminated into special representative talks on the boundary situation. This was between NSA Ajit Doval and Foreign Minister Wang Yi from the Chinese side. There was an agreement that both sides must de-escalate, disengage at the LAC as soon as possible, implement the consensus very soon as well. And this was necessary for peace and tranquility at the border. But we would be monitoring the situation very closely as well, because we heard about disengagement after the 6th June Corps Commander meeting as well. But then we saw the worst clash between India and China in 50 years. That was on the 15th of June. For the moment, we are learning that PLA troops have been seen removing their tents, vehicles from the face-off site that was patrolling point 14 in the Galwan area, also from Hot Springs. Pangong So remains a point of critical concern. We're not hearing about any disengagement there. There is still substantial deployment along the LAC. But yes, we are hearing that Chinese troops have started moving back, pulling back vehicles in at least 3 face-off points. Back to you.
All right, Parikshit, appreciate you joining us with that. Will this disengagement be sustainable is the big question that we will be discussing tonight. On the Lal Street, markets rallied for the 4th straight day, with the Sensex and the Nifty ending at their highest level in 4 months. Strong global cues and the signs of a thaw at the India-China border have boosted sentiment. So the Nifty now closer to 10,800. The Sensex well above 36,000. Banks and mid-caps also saw a strong rally. Well, some green shoots are visible in the economy, but there are serious challenges ahead. And that is the word in from the Finance Ministry's monthly economic report for June. While the government has acknowledged that the IMF has downgraded India's growth estimate for 2020 to negative 4.5%, it has stopped short of explicitly endorsing that view. It says that while recent actions could well help build on the existing green shoots and get India back to growth, there are several uncertainties. Sapna joins us now with more. Sapna, what challenges does the report highlight and what kind of green shoots does it talk about?
Well, clearly the first one, of course, is the fact that the monthly economic report for June has clearly quoted the IMF numbers, and they put that into context, indicating that a contraction of 4.5% is what IMF expects. Globally they have a certain estimate, and extrapolating from that for India, the estimate is minus 4.5%. Well, of course, as you rightly pointed out, there is no endorsement at all from the Finance Ministry on this front. They've only quoted the IMF numbers, but having said that, there are a few sectors which are looking up, and there are challenges as well. So quickly talking about those few sectors, if you look at the situation post partial lifting of the lockdown, you have petroleum consumption which is up. Of course, this is in comparison to April-May, so the numbers will still not be looking as good as they were last year for obvious reasons. But there is a pickup from the bottom that was there in April and May. Petroleum consumption is up. Your railway freight has gone up. That's a very important indicator. Then commensurately, your electronic toll collections have gone up. That means that road trade is picking up. You also have digital transactions spiking. NCPI numbers are very good at the moment. So there are a couple of indicators like this. Exactly. You also have Kharif sowing season, which is on. So the acreage of Kharif sowing is almost higher by around 103%. That's a big number that we're talking about. Also, the Rabi crop procurement has been absolutely complete. All of these put together, there is a ray of hope over here. Everything is not looking gloom and doom. So these are the kind of green shoots that the government is speaking about, and possibly these numbers will look up as and how the time goes. But the point here also is the fact that the rates are not anywhere back to what they were last year. It's just that from the period of the lockdown, April, May, these numbers are now beginning to look up. That's one. Second, clear 2 to 3 challenges here. A, there could be the risk of second round of infections, a second wave of infections, and unless the corona vaccine is actually found, that may pose a serious challenge to economic growth as well as other concerns which are there. Second, because of this huge uncertainty caused by the pandemic, business plans may not be coming to their fruition. People are really going to be hesitant in terms of putting in new investments. And also, with the social distancing norms now expected to be in place for a longer period, that will also definitely have a trade-off with the economic growth, and possibly that may add to the challenges of a recession.
All right, Sapna, appreciate you joining us here. That is the latest, the Finance Ministry's assessments on green shoots that the government is seeing for the economy and the challenges ahead. Well, it's been more than 100 days since India went into that nationwide lockdown. Since then, restrictions have been eased, but a return to normalcy is still some distance away. That's according to a survey done by FICCI and Dhruva Advisors. The survey shows that only 17% of the companies are currently working at over 80% capacity, and only 26% companies expect capacity to cross that level as the economy enters the unlock phase. But this is also a significant improvement over April and May, because the April findings were very different. Now, an overwhelming majority of 78% companies say unlocking of the economy has had no impact on their exports. Another 75% of the companies say their order book has not seen any increase due to the unlocking. So when does India Inc. expect normalcy to return? 12 months, say a majority. 57%, 24% see normalcy returning in 9 months. How will the government stimulus measures impact jobs? 38% companies see no impact, but only 9% of the companies expect to add jobs. 53% of companies expect job cuts. FICCI's Sangeeta Reddy and Dinesh Kanabar of Dhruva Advisor believe that things are gradually improving, but measures for demand generation are needed. Take a look.
Earlier, the government had said that only refunds up to rupees 5 lakhs would be issued. Then they started saying we'll issue to charities. Then they said MSMEs, etc. Today, if 36% of the companies are saying that they are receiving the refunds, that's a huge improvement. And this I can say as a practitioner and what is happening on the ground, there is a significant improvement. It equally shows that there is still a 64% right out there which is looking for refunds, and the government needs to sort of open up the purse strings to see that all refunds are issued. So it's a question of whether you're looking at a glass half full or half empty.
The lifting of the lockdown has just begun. For supply chain, you need to go back into production and then move this back. So I expect that when we do the next survey, you will see supply chain back up at 60-70% saying that things are intact. I'm not too worried about supply chain. I know there's going to be a little bit of up and down and uncertainty in terms of extent of opening. I believe that it's important for us to now look at sectors like infra, which will boost demand on one side.
Well, that's the FICCI Dinesh Kanavar Dhruva survey on the state of the economy and industry. Now, India has performed nearly 1 crore COVID-19 tests till now. As the country expands its testing base, rapid antigen tests have been added as an alternate diagnostic test in containment zones, hospitals, as well as to test high-risk individuals. After Delhi, Mumbai has become the second city to begin these tests and has purchased 1 lakh tests. Archana Shukla spent a day at a COVID care centre in Mumbai to find out more.
95.7, 99, 93.
Currently in Jogeshwari West COVID Care Center. This is an SRA building that has been converted into a quarantine center for all high-risk contacts of confirmed patients who live in slums and where they don't have a place for social distancing. They are kept here. Now, every high-risk contact after the 5th day has to be tested, and for that now BMC has started using the rapid antigen testing since the last 2 days. Now, these rapid antigen testing takes just about 15 minutes to give results, and the government has approved it for use on high-risk contacts, in containment zones, in hospitals, etc. You can see behind me, with proper social distancing, these high-risk contacts who are living here in this SRA COVID Care Center are waiting for their turn. They would first be checked for their temperature, fever, and with pulse oximetry for their oxygen level, and then they would be brought here for the swab collection. Now, these rapid antigen testing is to test the virus itself, so the swabs are taken, and then the test is performed on, like my cameraman, if he can show you, is performed on small kits. These are rapid test kits that take only about 15-20 minutes to give the result. The glitch only is that while every positive test is confirmed positive, but every negative test, all symptomatic people whose tests have turned negative will compulsorily be tested on RT-PCR. For now, the government has started in few containment centers in North Bombay and about 5 municipal hospitals across Mumbai, like Sion Hospital and Cooper. But the plan is going forward in the next 1 week or so, the BMC will go up to doing 2,000 rapid antigen tests per day, and they would be expanding it across all 9 wards in suburbs in North Bombay, because this is also the place where we are now seeing a fast rise in cases. So while Central Bombay and South Bombay cases have come down a bit, North Bombay is seeing high rise in cases, and with the approval of the government in containment zones, in high-risk places, hospitals, these rapid antigen tests will be used. BMC has procured 1 lakh of these antigen tests from ST Biosensor, and they would be utilizing it in the times to come. Because we were coming this close to swab collection and the testing and suspects, we were asked to wear these PPE kits because this is a high exposure area.
Well, that is a look at what is happening inside a COVID care facility in Mumbai as the government rolls out antigen testings. Our colleague Archana Shukla reporting. Time for us to head into a break, but coming up next, the government's new draft e-commerce policy proposes some tough rules around data. That and more when we get back. Well, the draft of the e-commerce policy, which has been in the works for quite some time now, will be made public soon. The policy plans to impose stricter rules on e-commerce players in order to strengthen data protection. The draft policy also talks about creating an environment to ensure that there are more service providers in the e-commerce space. Megha Vishwanath joins us now with more. Megha, take us through the key proposals in the draft e-commerce policy.
That is right. DPIIT is working on a draft e-commerce policy as the government has cited concerns over just one or two strong companies emerging as leaders and exercising control over the information repository. The draft policy mentions a regulator for the sector, especially on matters of fair competition and national security. The draft also further goes on to highlight other challenges when it comes to law and order, revenue-based erosion, privacy, anti-competitive behavior, consumer protection, and even copyright infringement. According to the new draft, when it comes to data, companies will have about 72 hours to comply with requests for information by the government and may also be mandated to disclose source code and algorithms if the government seeks it. The government is also pushing for data centers to be situated right here in India. In terms of exports, government will establish dedicated e-commerce export promotion cells and specialized export support policies for MSMEs in the interest of Indian consumers and also the local ecosystem, the startup ecosystem. The government will aim to ensure that there are more service providers available. With the new draft policy, it is important to remember that it covers some of the similar points on data localization and promoting exports as the first draft policy, which was released by the government last February. Since then, the government has held multiple discussions with the industry and is now set to make a final draft public very soon for further industry feedback.
All right, Megha, many thanks for joining us. The data localization issues were issues that a lot of the US companies, e-commerce companies, were up in arms against. So let's see whether this is going to evoke a similar reaction and response. A quick check of some of the other headlines we're tracking. The Haryana cabinet has cleared a draft ordinance to reserve 75% new private sector jobs for locals. It's likely to take the final call on the new law at its next meeting. The Railways has issued an information memorandum for private trains inviting requests for quotation for 12 clusters with over 100 pair of routes. Private entities will have the freedom to decide train fares and choose the source for procurement of trains and locomotives. With some riders, they will have to use Railways reservation system as their booking platform. Well, here's the latest from the power sector. Sources tell CNBC-TV18 that state discoms have sought loans worth 33,000 crore rupees from PFC and REC under the 90,000 crore rupee liquidity infusion scheme that was announced by the government. Anshu Sharma joins us now with more. Anshu.
That's right. It's the 90,000 crore liquidity infusion scheme, which is funded by PFC and REC. We understand that about 33,000 crore rupees worth loan has been sought by state distribution companies in the power sector. Now, out of 33,000 crores, 20,500 crore rupees worth loan has been sanctioned by the two companies, and about 4,800 crore rupees has been disbursed by PFC REC to two state distribution companies, Andhra Pradesh and Maharashtra. Now, there are many states which have sought loan under the scheme. That includes bigger states like Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, Jharkhand, Jammu and Kashmir, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, and others. But Uttar Pradesh itself has sought a loan for about 21,000 crore rupees, Karnataka about 7,000 crore, Rajasthan about 4,000 crore rupees. Now, two states, Tamil Nadu and Bihar, have sought relaxation under the Uday scheme, as earlier the Uday scheme has a provision that only 25% of the previous year revenue can be used as working capital by the state discoms. So that will give them a relaxation, and these loans then can be availed from PFC and REC. Remember, these loans are backed by the state, and we'll have to wait and watch out as to when that cabinet nod will come for relaxation of the norms under Uday scheme for the states to avail loan under this liquidity infusion scheme. Back to you.
All right, Anshu, thanks very much for joining us with that. Time for us to wrap up this edition of India Business Hour. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned to CNBC-TV18. The news continues.